Today, we're digging into the absolutely dramatic story of King Joash. This is a classic cautionary tale about a leader who basically lived two completely different lives, all in one lifetime.
What makes a good leader turn bad? It's a question for the ages, right? How can someone start with so much promise, doing all the right things, and just end up on this dark and destructive path? That question is really at the very heart of this whole story.
So our story begins with a king who, for all intents and purposes, started out as a hero. A young guy, a restorer of faith. He was doing everything right. He was exactly the hero his people needed at the time.
Yeah, the story takes this incredibly shocking turn and ends with betrayal, murder, and, a pretty dishonorable death at the hands of his own people. A complete reversal.
So what happened? That's the big question, right? The gap between that heroic beginning and that tragic end? Well, that's where the real story is. What could possibly cause such a complete transformation? Okay, let's dive into this and find out. All right, so let's start at the very beginning. We're in part 1, looking at Joash as the good king. This is his reign of restoration, when he was this young leader, defined by a really singular, noble ambition.
So first off, Joash comes to power as a kid. He's only 7 years old, and he reigns for 40 years. For decades, everything he does is described as righteous, right in the eyes of the Lord. But, and this is the crucial part, he was guided by the priest Jehoiada. Remember that name, because that relationship is the absolute key to everything that follows.
So early on in his reign, he gets this great ambition. He sets his sights on a massive project, restoring the temple of the Lord. It had been desecrated, broken into, and its sacred objects were being used for idol worship. Joash was determined to fix this, to bring it back to its former glory.
And this really shows you what kind of leader he was. At first, so he gives the command to the priest to collect money for repairs, right? But the Levites kind of drag their feet. The process stalls, but Joash doesn't give up. Instead, he comes up with this clever solution. He has a chest placed at the temple gate for public donations, and wow, did it work. The people, the officials, they all contributed gladly, generously. The funds pour in, they hire workers, and the temple gets rebuilt, restored to its original design, a huge success.
So the temple was fully restored. Offerings were being made continually. Everything was going right. This was the peak of his success. But you see that final little clause there, as long as Jehoiada lived? Oof, that's some serious foreshadowing. You just know a dramatic shift is coming. And here it is, the turning point, a mentor's death. This is the single event that pivots the entire story, the death of his lifelong guide, Jehoiada.
Look at this. You couldn't ask for a clearer, more stark contrast. His 40-year reign is split perfectly in two. With Jehoiada, righteousness and restoration. After Jehoiada, idolatry and judgment. It's like two completely different stories.
So after Jehoiada died, new officials came to the king, and he listened to them. This is the moment it all flips. It's like his moral compass just vanished. You can almost feel this power vacuum, and a new group of officials swoops right in, they get his ear, and they lead him and the whole kingdom down a totally different path. And the reversal is just swift and total. You know that temple he worked so hard to restore? Yeah, they abandoned it. They started worshiping Asherah poles and idols. And when prophets were sent to warn them, to try and pull them back from the brink, they just ignored them, refused to listen.
So now we're entering part 2. And this is where things go from bad to worse. The shift builds from simply abandoning their faith to actively committing acts of horrific betrayal and bloodshed. This is where the story gets really, truly dark.
And the warning that comes is so direct. Because you have forsaken the Lord, he has forsaken you. But look who delivers this prophecy. Zechariah, the son of Jehoiada, the son of the very man who saved Joash, who mentored him, who guided his entire righteous reign. Now his son has to stand before the king and call him out. So what's Joash's response? It's absolutely chilling. Instead of listening to the warning, he orders Zechariah, the son of the man who saved him, to be stoned to death. Think about that. He repays a lifetime of kindness and guidance by murdering his mentor's son, in the temple courtyard no less. This is the point of no return.
And Zechariah's last words? May the Lord see this and call you to account. Wow, with his dying breath, he basically utters a curse, a call for justice. And those words, they hang over the rest of Joash's life. And believe me, the consequences come swiftly. And that
brings us to the consequence, the king's undoing. From this point on, Joash's downfall is just inevitable. That account he was called to, well, it's now due.
So, the first judgment is military. The Aramaean army attacks, and these numbers right here tell the whole story. The Aramaeans had just a few men. Judah had a much larger army. And who won? The few men. They were completely defeated. This wasn't about bad strategy or luck. This was a direct consequence. Joash actually survives the battle, but he's left severely wounded. But his final end? Well, that wasn't going to come from a foreign enemy. It came from much, much closer to home.
So in his final days, he's betrayed by his own officials. And get this, the reason they gave? For murdering Jehoiada's son. The very crime that set off his downfall comes back to finish him. They assassinated him in his own bed, and as a final sign of just how far he had fallen, he was denied burial in the royal tombs, a completely dishonorable end.
And all of this leaves us with this one big, lingering question. Is our character our own, or is it just a reflection of our advisors? You know, was Joash inherently a good guy who got corrupted, or was he kind of like a blank slate, just reflecting the guidance of whoever had his ear at the time? It's really the central mystery of his life, and, maybe it's a question worth asking about our own lives too.